My name is Amelia W. Goforth. I am 31 years old and I work in operations for a mid-sized logistics company. I live in a busy metro area in the Midwest and my days are structured. Early mornings, long meetings, gym at night, repeat. I value routine and quiet progress. My boyfriend was Mason. He is 29. We were together a little over 2 years and lived together for the last 9 months in his apartment. I paid most of the bills because my income was higher and it made sense at the time. No kids, no pets, shared furniture, shared schedules, or at least I thought we did. I'm saying all this because I need outside perspective, not validation. I know people love to jump straight to leave him and move on, but the sequence matters. When Mason and I met, he was sharp and funny and a little rough around the edges in a way I mistook for confidence. He worked in marketing at a mid-level firm and talked a lot about ambition and leveling up. I respected that. I am not flashy, but I am consistent, and early on he said that was grounding for him. Things started shifting about 6 months ago when he got close with a new group of coworkers. Mostly single, mostly loud. Lots of after-work drinks and group chats that never stopped buzzing. I was supportive at first. I never checked his phone. I never complained about late nights. I assumed we were adults who trusted each other. What I did notice was tone, small comments, jabs framed as jokes, remarks about how other women at his office dressed better or made more money or had more exciting lives. He started saying things like, "Maybe we're just in different phases," or "You're great, but sometimes I wonder if this is it." I addressed it calmly. I asked if he was unhappy. He said I was being sensitive and that his coworkers just helped him see his worth. That phrase stuck with me. Last week on a Tuesday night, he came home unusually calm. Too calm. He sat across from me at the kitchen table and said, "We need to talk." That was when he told me his coworkers thought he could do better. He said it plainly, almost rehearsed. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't insult me directly. He just looked at me like the conclusion was obvious and inevitable. I nodded once, not in anger, not in disbelief, just acknowledgement. Then I said one word. "Go ahead." After I said it, I stood up from the table and walked to the bedroom. Mason didn't follow me. That was the first confirmation that the conversation had never been meant as a negotiation. It was a notification. He had already emotionally left. This was just the moment he informed me. I pulled my duffel bag out of the closet and started packing. Not everything, just my things. Work clothes, gym gear, toiletries, laptop charger. The practical items I had purchased myself. No slamming drawers, no dramatic pauses. I move the way I do when I'm preparing for a work trip. Efficient. My heart rate stayed steady, which surprised me more than anything else. I expected adrenaline, anger, something dramatic. Instead, I felt calm. Looking back, I think I had already accepted the outcome weeks earlier without realizing it. When I walked back into the living room with the bag over my shoulder, Mason was still sitting at the kitchen table. He looked at me like he had expected something else. "Okay," he said slowly. That was it. No argument. No attempt to stop me. No reassurance. Just okay. Like we were confirming a canceled meeting. I asked him one practical question. "When do you want me to come back for the rest of my things?" He shrugged slightly. "We can coordinate later." His tone was polite, almost professional. That was when it really landed, that the relationship had already been over in his mind for a while. I walked out the door and closed it quietly behind me. In the car, I sat for about a minute before starting the engine. Not because I was overwhelmed. Because I needed to register that it was actually over. No explosion. No villain. Just a clean cut. I checked into a hotel near my office that night and slept straight through. The next morning, I went to work like usual. After my meetings, I signed a short-term lease on a furnished place closer to downtown. New neighborhood, new routine, fewer reminders. 3 days later, I went back to Mason's apartment while he was at work and packed the rest of my belongings. He had moved nothing. Everything was exactly where I left it. That felt intentional. Almost like he wanted the room to look untouched in case I changed my mind. I packed quietly, loaded the car, and left the keys on the kitchen counter. That evening, the messages started. Not angry. Not dramatic. Just uncertain. "Are you okay? This feels sudden. I thought we would talk more about it." I didn't respond. Not out of spite. Because leaving had already been the response. The text continued over the next 2 days. Nothing explosive. Just short check-ins. One message said he hoped we could talk like adults and get closure. I ignored everything until Sunday night. Not because I was overwhelmed. Because I wanted to be intentional if I replied at all. By then, my things were moved. My address was updated with work. The decision was done. What remained was housekeeping. So I sent one message. No conversation. No back and forth. I told him I wished him luck. I said I hoped he found someone who matched what he and his coworkers were looking for. I said there was no anger on my end and no need for closure conversations because the situation was already clear. I ended it by saying I was moving on and would not be staying in contact. He responded almost immediately. Longer message this time. More emotion. He said he never meant for it to end like this, that he thought I would push back or ask him to reconsider, that the whole thing escalated faster than he expected. I didn't reply. Instead, I blocked his number. Then Instagram, then LinkedIn, then email. Anywhere we had overlap. Not out of cruelty, out of efficiency. Open channels invite unnecessary noise. That night, I sat in my new apartment surrounded by half-unpacked boxes and realized something uncomfortable. Mason didn't break up with me because I treated him badly. He broke up with the version of me he compared against other women, and I had no interest in auditioning. The next week was quiet. Almost unsettlingly quiet. No notifications, no apologies, no sudden emotional confessions, just silence. I filled that silence with routine. Work during the day, gym at night, slowly setting up my new apartment the way I wanted it. Minimal furniture, clean surfaces, functional space, no compromises about decor or clutter. It was the first place I had lived in that reflected only my choices. Friends asked what happened. I kept the explanation simple. We wanted different things. No long rants. No character assassination. I wasn't trying to win a narrative. About a month after I left, something interesting started happening. The changes in my life began compounding in ways I hadn't planned, but also didn't resist. The shorter commute gave me back almost an hour every day. I used that time to train harder and sleep better. At work, I picked up a project I had passed on before because it required extra travel and longer hours. Without needing to negotiate my schedule with anyone, I took it. I delivered results faster than expected. That project turned into a promotion conversation sooner than I had anticipated. Nothing dramatic, just more responsibility, more autonomy, and a noticeable pay increase. I didn't announce it to anyone. I simply adjusted my budget and kept moving. Around this time, I moved again, not across the country, but far enough away that running into Mason by accident stopped being a background possibility. New lease, new neighborhood, new gym where no one knew my relationship history. That alone felt like oxygen. Meanwhile, mutual friends began acting strange, guarded, curious. Eventually, one of them told me Mason had been asking questions. Not directly, indirectly. How is she doing? Is she dating? Did she really block me everywhere, or is that temporary? Apparently, he had expected a cooling off period. Some time apart, followed by a recalibration where I came back improved and apologetic. Instead, I vanished, and my life kept expanding without him. The tone of the stories shifted after that. Curiosity became sharper. He started telling people it was immature to block someone completely. That disappearing like that was avoidant behavior, that he never actually broke up with me. He just wanted honesty. The same coworkers who told him he could do better were now validating that I had somehow failed a test. I heard all of this secondhand and felt nothing but distance, not anger, just detachment. The opinions of people who never knew me stopped carrying weight the moment I stopped standing in front of them. What struck me later was not that Mason wanted me back. It was that he wanted access. Access to the version of me who absorbed doubt and stayed put. That version no longer existed. The real upgrade wasn't the job. It wasn't the apartment. It was the absence of negotiation. And that made his absence permanent. About 2 weeks later, the indirect contact escalated. It still didn't come from Mason directly. It came through friends who suddenly wanted to grab coffee or check in. People who had been neutral during the breakup now seemed oddly invested in my emotional availability. The pattern was obvious. Someone would ask how I was doing. I would answer briefly. Then they would mention Mason without mentioning Mason. He's having a hard time. He didn't expect things to end so cleanly. One friend actually said something that stayed with me. She feels replaced by your silence. That phrasing explained everything. It wasn't the breakup that bothered him. It was the disappearance. There was no arc where he got to feel chosen again. No moment where he could frame himself as the one who walked away. The story had ended without his input. I learned later that things shifted at his job too. The coworkers who encouraged him quietly lost interest when the drama stopped being entertaining. One started dating someone Mason had previously compared me to. Another left the company entirely. The feedback loop disappeared. That's when his tone changed again. Less confidence. More regret. He told a mutual friend he thought I would come back improved. That the point of the breakup was to motivate me. Hearing that confirmed everything. I wasn't a partner in his mind. I was a project. Around that time, my life settled into something that finally felt permanent. I finished furnishing the apartment exactly how I wanted. No leftover furniture from the old place. No compromises about space or layout. I kept it minimal and calm. Clean surfaces, good lighting, nothing in the room that existed just to impress someone else. I also started taking short weekend trips. Nothing extravagant. Just driving to nearby cities, walking through neighborhoods I'd never seen, sitting in cafes where nobody knew my history. The quiet started to feel normal. Then one afternoon, I received an email at work from an address I didn't recognize. It was Mason. He had created a new account. The message was short. I miss our conversations. I think I misjudged you. Could we talk sometime soon? I stared at the screen for a moment. Then I deleted it and blocked that address too. That was the moment I understood something clearly. Closure isn't something you owe someone who already decided your value with a group vote. Closure is something you give yourself by not reopening doors that were closed cleanly. A few weeks later, Mason tried a different approach. I was leaving the gym on a Thursday night when I saw his car in the parking lot. I recognized it immediately, even though I hadn't seen it in months. He was leaning against the door like he had been waiting there for a while. When he saw me, he smiled. Hey. I nodded politely and kept walking. He fell into step beside me. How have you been? Good. You look different. I feel different. He laughed softly. I've been doing a lot of thinking. I didn't respond. He kept going. I realized I let other people influence my decisions. My coworkers projected their insecurities onto our relationship. I stopped walking. He took that as encouragement. Maybe we both needed time apart to grow, he said. Maybe now we could start fresh. For the first time since the breakup, I looked at him directly. We weren't on a break, I said calmly. What? We were done. He frowned. You disappeared. I left. There's a difference. Not really, he sighed. I just thought you needed time. I didn't disappear to be rediscovered, I said. I left because I meant it. His expression changed slightly. Something between confusion and disbelief. You're serious? Yes. He tried another tactic. You're not even curious about what could have been if we handled things differently. I am curious, I said. And the answer is still no. He stood there quietly for a moment. Then he asked the question he had probably been building toward the entire conversation. So there's no chance. No. Not angry. Not emotional. Just final. I walked to my car and drove home. Later that night, I blocked the last few mutual contacts who had been relaying information between us. Not because I was hiding, because I was finished. That conversation clarified something important. Mason didn't miss me. He missed the control he had when I stayed. Stop. To part 5. After that encounter, things finally went quiet. Not the temporary quiet that comes before another attempt. The real kind. No more indirect messages through friends. No surprise appearances at places he knew I frequented. No new email addresses. It felt deliberate, like he finally understood there wasn't an angle left. My life kept moving forward in very ordinary ways. I signed a longer lease on the apartment. I accepted the promotion at work and started mentoring 2 junior analysts on my team. I began planning 6 months ahead instead of reacting week to week. The pace of my life slowed, but the direction became clearer. A couple of months later, a coworker mentioned Mason during lunch without realizing the history. Apparently, he had applied for a role at a partner company we occasionally collaborated with. During the conversation, he casually referenced me as someone he used to live with who worked in operations. That detail stood out to me. I had become part of his credibility instead of part of his life. The position didn't go anywhere. He wasn't qualified for it, but hearing that he still referenced me professionally confirmed something. He still wanted proximity to the stability he had walked away from. A week after that, a mutual friend reached out. He was one of the few people I hadn't blocked because he had stayed neutral throughout everything. Hey, he said. Mason asked if you'd consider unblocking him so he could apologize properly. Not to get back together, just to clear the air. I thought about it longer than I expected. Not because I missed Mason, because I wanted to make sure my answer wasn't reflexive. In the end, I said no. I told my friend Mason had already said everything that mattered the night he let his coworkers decide my value. Anything after that would just be revision. My friend understood and didn't push. What surprised me most about that decision was how little emotion came with it. No anger, no relief, just finality. Like closing a browser tab you forgot was open. A few weeks later, I ran into one of Mason's former coworkers at a conference. We ended up talking over coffee between sessions. She mentioned Mason without prompting. Honestly, she said, he had a rough stretch after you left. I think he expected life to upgrade automatically. She laughed awkwardly before adding something that explained everything in one sentence.
I think he thought you were the floor, not the ceiling.
That line stayed with me for a long time. I wasn't someone he planned to build a life with. I was the platform he stood on while looking for something he thought was better. When I stepped away, he fell back to ground level and realized how high he had been. By then, I was already somewhere else mentally. I started dating again slowly, not chasing chemistry, looking for alignment, asking different questions, watching behavior instead of listening to narratives. The more stable my life became, the less dramatic it looked from the outside. No big glow up, no revenge arc, just forward motion. And apparently that bothered him more than anything else ever had. About a year after everything ended, I realized I had stopped thinking about Mason entirely, not actively avoiding the thought, just genuinely not accessing it anymore. That's how I knew it was finished. I was settled in a different city, working in a role that challenged me without draining me, and building a relationship with someone who valued quiet consistency instead of performance. Every once in a while, someone would still mention Mason in passing. He had changed jobs again, different friend group, dating someone new. The updates sounded busy and restless. I wished him well privately and went back to my day. Looking back, the moment that mattered most wasn't when he said we should break up. It was how easily he let me walk away. That told me everything about how he valued what we had. I just responded in kind. People like to frame disappearing as dramatic. Mine wasn't. It was logistical. When someone tells you that you are replaceable, the correct response isn't to argue your case. It's to remove yourself from the comparison entirely. I didn't win him back. I didn't try. I didn't need to. What I gained was something much more valuable. Proof that I could walk away cleanly. Proof that I didn't need consensus to trust my own judgment. Proof that stability doesn't come from convincing someone to stay. It comes from knowing exactly where you no longer belong. And that was the beginning of everything else.